Give us a roll call, please.
This is a public workshop of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners this 10th day of May, 2022. In attendance are Chairman Ronald D. Kitchen Jr., First Vice Chair Ruthie Schleba, Second Vice Chair Holly Davis, Commissioner Scott Carnahan, and Jeff Kennard, that I assume will be rejoining us soon, County Administrator Randy Oliver, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamond.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kennard's probably looking for a cup of coffee. There he is. Okay.
He's probably relieving himself.
Yeah. What I'd like to do today is something a little different, seeing that this is a workshop. What I'd like to do is open up to public comment, open to the public first after Mr. Oliver tells us what we're here to discuss today. So I'll let him kind of talk about what we're here for today, hear what his comments are. Then we'll open to the public to get their input as far as what they think we should be concentrating on. Then we'll have our workshop with the commissioners, and they can ask questions of whoever they want during that time. And then once we finish, we'll go back to open to the public to make sure we wrapped everything up during our workshop. Okay? So, Mr. Oliver, you want to take us away?
We have Quincy Wallopek, who's our airports manager, who's with us. Citrus County is fortunate in that we have two general aviation airports, which is a bit unusual for a county of 150,000. Obviously, one in Inverness, one in Crystal River. What we're going to talk about, what the county historically has done, is just provide the funding that matches whatever we get in aviation grants from the state and the federal government. If you all want to go beyond that, we're going to need you to tell us that. And we're going to discuss funding and what is planned at those two airports in the context of what we're doing, and to see if the direction that you want to go is correct. If you want to do some things differently, progress at a different pace, whatever. I would note that the extension of the runway to 5,000 feet, I don't know if the budget's been submitted to the governor yet, but it was approved by the Senate and the House. The funding for that, and we're going to discuss what the schedule is for that, because based on our conversation with our airport consultant, we still have to do the environmental assessment. He believes that because of the person that handles ours is a little faster than the one that handles somebody else's in the state, but he still anticipates that'll take about 18 months before we're in a position to bid that project. So with that, Mr. Chairman, following your lead as it relates to schedule, that's just a brief overview. We're going to go through the details and the schedules for each airport. I would note that Commissioner Davis sent out a paper last night and a little revised version this morning as it relates to some thoughts as it relates to the airport.
Thank you. So as we said, we'll open this up if you're here from the public. If you're here representing a group or a county board, you'll get 5 minutes. If you're here just as a member of the public, you have 3. We'll have public input at the beginning to make sure we talk about what you want us to talk about, and then we'll have our discussion and we'll do public input before we adjourn. So at that, anyone here from the public wishes to address the board at this time? Yes, sir. Please come up. If you would just give us your name, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, thank you very much for holding this workshop today. My name is Heiko Kallenbach. I'm a resident of Beverly Hills. Been in Citrus County for the past 26 years, and for the last year and a half I've had the honor of sitting on your Aviation Advisory Board. Currently chairman, and happy to be here and speak to you. I'm also a pilot for Delta Airlines for the past 24 years. For another 5 months and 19 days to be exact. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that you have all read and heard about the impending pilot shortage. It's been coming at us for the last 20 years, and I can speak with certainty that it is here and is likely to last for the next 10 years or so. Anybody who's traveled, who's tried to buy airline tickets, whose flights have been canceled due to lack of crews, knows all too well the issues with respect to that. The beautiful thing for us here today is that it provides us with an immense opportunity for the youth in Citrus County. There are jobs out there like there's no tomorrow and may never be again, who knows. Anything that we can do to make more accessible to the youth of Citrus County, flight schools, flight educations, airport flying opportunities, the more we can provide these career-building paths for our youth, and the more that youth will stay here in Citrus County, the more folks will come here to train, and the more folks we will fly in, out, and the economy of the county as a whole will benefit immensely. I have had the pleasure of flying out of Crystal River. When our kids were young, we've been renting airplanes, my wife and I, for many, many years. My children both learned to fly there at Crystal River. I've had the opportunity to visit Wright Rudder Aviation in Inverness, and looking very much forward to taking some glider training there. I think there are vast opportunities both in flying and maintenance, airport management through with Lakuchi Tech, all of which can be propagated to a great extent by what we do here today and what you folks envision for tomorrow and the near future. So, everything that's been laid out so far in the presentations you have in front of you, what Commissioner Davis has put together, I think is well thought out. I've had the pleasure of speaking many, many times with Captain Tom Davis, who glider pilot extraordinaire, from what I understand, as well as owner of Crystal Aero Group for many, many years, founder back in 1980. He has a wealth of information that we can all draw upon. And I would encourage the board to reach out to him as well and get his thoughts on where we might go. He's been here forever and has seen everything that can possibly be seen with respect to the growth. Both schools were at one point much, much larger than they are today. They were decimated to a great extent by the pandemic over the last few years, and there's no reason why they cannot be built back up to the volume of business that they once had. And whatever you can do to support them in that, whatever we can do together to work to provide funding for the youth of Citrus County in aviation, I think all of that will come back to us in spades as our children go out into the world, make something of themselves, and potentially many of them come back here. My wife and I chose to live here throughout my entire airline career since 1996. No reason why our kids can't do that as well. No reason why they should have to leave this county for business opportunities. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here
Thank
today.
you.
And again, we'll have more public input in. Doug, could you put that box up there? Thank you so
And
much.
it says it's supposed to beep and it's not. And
Okay.
so-
Jeff, do you know the secret code to make it beep?
Yeah, because I think you fixed it last time.
Yeah.
So please-
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak
It says
at this
beep on
time?
red. Program, dim red. It's all set up the way it should be. But then when I left to go to the ladies' room, you magically fixed it. When I
Yeah.
came back, it was working.
Maybe it's just got to have the chiropractor touch on it.
Yeah.
Needs an adjustment.
Good adjustment on it.
I was just saying, my neck is kind of.
Okay, well, if there's nobody else to speak at open to the public at this time, then Randy, we're going to just move right
Okay,
on
if we can
into
go
our
to the first
presentation.
slide.
Barely have to go to the ladies' room, you'll fix it.
Okay, this is the Crystal River Airport in what we call the early years. Quincy dug this out of the archives, so this just gives you an aerial view. The next slide is the site of the Dairy Queen in 1950. As you can see, US 19 was not what it was. The elevation was quite different. They are currently working on 19. My understanding is that the road there is going to be increased quite a bit. And as a result of that, there's going to be quite a decline going into the Dairy Queen. These are the facilities, or these are the improvements. We've gotten the bids, or we've gotten the quotes back on all of these particular items, except for the awning. I know there's been a proposed roof over the sidewalk. We're looking for funding for how we're going to fund this. We do have the CRISA funds, but I would note that we're going to have to do some moving of money around because we cannot use this for some of the things the board said, but the one thing that's good about money, you can move it from one place to pay something that will be eligible. So we'll make that work. But these are the improvements that are scheduled, and these are the anticipated start and finish dates. Mr. Hall takes care of those repairs and things like that, so he will be making sure that that happens. Okay, the next slide, this is the proposed runway extension, and I know this one is pretty hard to read. We got a bigger one coming back. But as you can see, the one particular road will be cul-de-sac. There probably will be some discussion within the community right around that area about that being cul-de-sac, but obviously that is necessary. Okay, we have to do an EA, and we're gonna give you the schedule for the runway extension. We have to do an environmental assessment for the runway extension to include removal of the wetlands south of the runway. We have to acquire a parcel, and it's unclear at this point whether we can do an aviation easement or whether we need to acquire the parcel. If it's a voluntary acquisition, we have a lot more flexibility than if we have to go through condemnation, because condemnation means we have to we can only acquire the minimum that we need. Commissioner Davis has indicated to me that the people with the adjacent property have a vision that would be very compatible with the airport, and hopefully that will work.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Randy, real quick, are there any of these steps that can be done concurrently? It just seems like these long delays are escalating our construction costs, and we're having to revisit some of these major projects, because what we start with today, at today's costs, we get down the road after it's studied and bid out and all of the rest of the stuff, and now all of a sudden, we've got a fraction of the money that we need to do the actual project.
I talked with Senator Rubio's office yesterday with his new chief of staff for Florida, and they've indicated a willingness to help us. My experience is the FAA is one that doesn't necessarily get influenced by those discussions. But we can do the environmental assessment as well as prepare the construction drawings concurrently, but we can't go to bid until we have the environmental assessment document back from the FAA.
Okay.
They have to sign off on it.
So the answer is yes and no.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it.
Commissioner Carnahan?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Randy, where the golf course drive construction, the new road to US 19, do we have a path for that?
Yeah, we do. Let's, if you'll let me get back,
that's fine. I just-
about
okay.
3 slides will be there.
Okay.
This is the schedule that we got from the airport consultant as it relates to how we do it. As you can see, the design and the environmental assessment. The first hindering step, Commissioner Kennard, that we have is once the governor signs off on this particular budget for July 1st, there's about historically 2 to 3 months of dead time until we get a grant agreement. So if we
Okay.
can speed that up, that will speed this up too, because I cannot enter into any contracts in advance of receiving that grant agreement.
Okay.
Typically, and I don't know the agency this is coming through yet, I would expect it to come through FDOT. Typically, we get FDOT grant agreements in September, October. But if we can get it in July or August, that would be ideal.
Okay.
That would be a total speed of about 2 or 3 months.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm hoping with the economy, it appears to be starting to slow down a bit, that would have a positive impact on prices, but we don't know.
Okay.
Okay, this just shows you, this is one of the biggest planes I've seen to fly into Crystal River on the next flight, but that's a pretty significant aircraft. And that was taken within the last 2 or 3 weeks.
It's a Falcon.
So, we've got the wetlands removal south of the runway. We've got fuel tank replacement, which that's been moved up. We are going to be doing the design work in 22-23 budget. DOT has said that they will move the design up and then fund it in the next year. So that will be worked on as soon as they can move the money around. The T hangar for number 3, The one thing I will mention on T hangers, which I will reiterate, is currently, and they've talked about eliminating this program, T hangers are funded 50% by the state and 50% by the county. So that's a budget consideration. And we need to make sure that the rent that we
Mr.
get
Chair.
pays for our 50%.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
Two questions, Randy. The fuel farm tanks replacement, that was addressed in this letter that you sent us last night. That will have, or will that have the self-service option for people needing to fuel after hours?
We'll design it that way.
Okay. And the T-hanger buildings, will those hangars be constructed to a size that'll accommodate turbine aircraft, or are we designing for Cessnas again?
Typically, the design is for what the market will bear. You know, some people will say that build a bigger hangar, and if you got smaller aircraft, you can put 2 in it. Commissioner Davis probably knows the term better than I can do, but it's called something rash when you put
Hanger rash.
hanger rash, and I know there's some concerns about that. But that will be something when it's done. It's really gonna be what the market will bear. On the larger aircraft, people tend to build their own hangar, which Mr. Lamb has done for his.
Right. My concern, and I know that there are at least a couple people that fly larger aircraft, not like that Falcon in the picture, but fly larger aircraft in there that don't leave their aircraft here. They fly at home empty, so it can be hangared. Again, I have a concern that we're building hangars that can't house the aircraft that we're extending the runway to attract. The larger hangars, if somebody, somebody with the, and I don't mean this to sound that way, but with the smaller Cessna aircrafts and so forth, if they want to pay the rent on a larger hangar, then that's available to them. But if an individual with these larger aircraft want to hangar here in the county, they don't even have that option right now if we continue to build the smaller hangars. So I know I've brought this up several times. I've been told that the message has been heard. I hope that it is as we move into design. We don't necessarily have to build hangars to hangar those much larger aircraft, but we've got folks here that would rent the larger hangars.
Well, I think what I would suggest is we do a survey as it relates to what the market is for, hangars, and then govern it accordingly based on the survey.
All right, and again, I apologize for taking up the time with this, but
That's what we're here for.
What's that?
That's what we're here for. So.
There's no doubt in my mind that we've got probably 200 Cessna aircraft to every one turbine aircraft in the county. So if we do a survey, the survey results are going to be 400 to 2. But if we're extending the runway to 5,000 feet, we're doing that for one sole purpose, and that's to make it safe for turbine aircraft to take off and land there. We're spending hopefully spending millions of dollars in state money to attract these aircraft. They're not going to stay if they can't hangar here. So we've got to keep that in mind. We've got to be looking towards the future. And if we want to attract businesses that have turbine aircraft, and there are certainly plenty of them here, if we want to attract more of them, we've got to give them a place to hangar. So I'll get off of it for now, but I'm going to continue beating that drum as we move forward. Both of our airports need to have that capability.
All right, Commissioner Davis?
I agree with Commissioner Kennard's viewpoints on this, just to possibly shed a little bit of extra thought process in this. T-hangars traditionally in the old days were actually literally T-hangars. There was a space for the tail and you had to back in, and that creates a much tighter footprint, so you can hangar many more airplanes in a small amount of space, right? People don't like to have to get out and put the little thing on and, on the nose gear and back it into a T-hanger. The ones we have at Crystal River are pull-through. They're still called T-hangers, but they're actually airplane ports, if you will, that are pull-through, much like a carport. Crystal River just experienced a couple of months ago a pretty bad rash of thefts. Somebody jumped the fence in the middle of the night and made off with a lot of very expensive electronics, breaking into various airplanes. So I would say that while it would be nice perhaps to have larger carports, as it were, for pull-through for visiting falcons and things like that, I'm pretty sure that they also want, to your point, they want more like a corporate hangar standpoint where it can be locked. So people can't break into it overnight. So that's, I don't really have a viewpoint here. I just thought I'd shed a little more information on it, so.
Okay. Please get, I mean, and this kind of goes without saying, but I thought one of the, going back to the fuel, when I've talked to folks over the years at the airport, that the thing about the runway extension, the number one thing they've always brought up is the lost revenue in fuel. So when we redesign these fuel tanks, I assume we're redesigning them for a larger capacity, because if we're expanding the runways to bring in customers that we can sell more fuel to, we'll have the capacity to do that, right? So, right. Well, I'm just making those kind of assumptions, because that was the number one thing I heard about was fuel, so. Okay, please continue.
Okay, the next slide shows at the end of the runway there, shows the property that will essentially be required to extend that runway. That's the minimum requirement. The best way to do that has not quite been determined, whether it's air rights, fee simple, or whatever, but that is the minimum requirement for, based on the initial analysis the airport consultant has done.
Randy, is that, can I ask, do we know, is that property owned by an individual? Is that owned by the state?
This is the part of the old golf course.
Okay.
That was there, and it was sold probably 2 or 3 years ago. We had arranged a deal with the owner before he listed with a realtor, and they'd offered to sell it to us, and then when the realtor got a hold of it, they had told us that they only wanted to sell the whole thing. So we, at that point, didn't proceed, because we were prepared to proceed to purchase that part in anticipation for the future, but that fell through. But as I say, I've heard that that particular owner wants to make this more of a partnership with the airport. So hopefully that will move forward in that vein.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I spoke with the owner's representative. He's a family member as well as a realtor that's representing that property. And I spoke with him last year, and I spoke with him again yesterday. Their position has not changed from last year. They, their desire for that property is to make it an air park community. So it would be where the golf course is, it'd be houses with hangars. And to do that, they actually need the 5,000-foot runway, because currently that if they build houses over there, it would require crossing a public road, which they cannot do legally. So going to 5,000 feet actually benefits them. I'm not sure which of those two buildings, I was looking at the GPS, which of those two buildings is the former Elegant Pelican, but if it's the one that is facing where the runway is, that would actually be a dream scenario here, where we have a restaurant overlooking the end of a new 5,000-foot runway, which brings a lot more of the $100 hamburger runs, which are a really big boon to any economy with a regional airport. And in extending that runway, we will then cut that road, and I believe our Quincy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mosen, our aviation consultant, said that the FAA is now looking kinder into private property access to a public field. So I would envision possibly having a clicker gate for any airplanes that are based by the house to have to come up to a gate and click it to get in, to make sure that we protect the sanctity of the airfield. So they want to cooperate, is the short answer.
You go to the next slide, the Elegant Pelican's the building that sits off to the FAR building.
The which one?
If, the next slide. Well, that slide, you see, right there at the end, you got the one building, the far building over next to the pond, that's where the Elegant Pelican is.
Oh, that's not the good building then?
No, ma'am,
Darn.
unfortunately.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh, well.
Okay, Mr., yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with the airport at all. This is very confusing to me. When I look at the property appraiser's website, it shows we own that part that's the dark at the end of the runway. So what are y'all talking about?
That's what I was,
Can somebody point?
well, that's what I'm talking about. The first, I'm looking at the slide that's in red.
Right, that's what I'm
And
looking
it
at.
shows the area at the end, the proposed end of the roadway that looks to me like it's forested or wetlands or whatever, right there.
Yeah, we
to the
already
far-
own that.
We
I
own
think
that.
Quincy can answer.
Everything in red we own. If you want
Okay.
to back up
Oh.
to the runway extension slide, that shows the piece that's needed.
I don't know what slide you're, because I'm very
There you go.
confused.
Okay.
The part in purple is the piece we need.
Okay, so it's
Three
not
acres.
that whole big section, it's just that part.
It's just that piece
Okay,
there.
I got
okay,
it.
all right.
Now,
I apologize, but I was
No,
so
I was
confused.
confused too.
brought it
I
up.
thought it was, yeah.
I thought the same thing.
Yep.
Okay, so that slide is not, that slide is what we own. We have to go back to this other one, and I know there's people watching that might be confused as well, so.
Good, thank you. Let's be a little more clear. We also should point out, we're assuming certain things, that Highway 19 would be to the left side of the picture that you're looking at, right? So if you're trying to familiarize yourself with the area, is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Right,
may I,
okay.
ask? So all we need is the purple part? Is
Yes.
that what, and that's what's owned by, that group?
Yes.
Golf course.
Sorry, thank you.
Now, obviously, for the future, the more land you can get at the end of the runway, the better. So,
This might be a good opportunity to speak on that. Tom Davis gave me a lot of background on this over the weekend. He said when cell towers first started popping up all over the county, it was getting a little crazy, and they were about to impinge upon our airspace in terms of glide slope protection and lateral protection for various approaches into both of the airports. And he said that there was a staffer, I think it was internal county staff, sometime in the past, who did a masterful job of basically creating a program where you could plug it in and figure out what height requirement needed to be protected around both airports. So whatever we can do to protect the area around the airports going forward is absolutely critical to the health of both airports. Because currently, right now, we cannot have a precision approach into Crystal River. And sorry, I'm pulling a blank. I don't think we can do it into Inverness either because of the tree obstruction. So precision approach would be incredibly wonderful, powerful economic tool to get into both airports.
well, Quincy can speak to this, but I think the precision approach at Crystal River, I think, is gonna take even more property acquisition if the board wants to do that. But the other part is that we do have the overlays around the airport, and they're supposed to get approval. I know that the Dairy Queen put up their facade too high, and the city
Yes.
had permitted that. That's subsequently been rectified, so that has been fixed. But it's a matter of working together for the benefit of everyone. Is there anything you want to add on precision approach, Quincy? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can we learn what a precision approach is?
Please.
And I understand that it's land is the limiting factor in Crystal River. What about Inverness?
Precision approach is basically where you go in an instruments.
Okay.
Well, there's precision and there's non-precision approaches. So non-precision approach has a much higher minimum. So you would come in, say for example, Heiko, 1,000 feet circling minimum. So you can go much lower with a precision approach. So if the cloud deck is here, then you can
Get 200.
it expands the capability of the airport to come in poor weather versus the
Okay.
non-precision. Non-precision, you come to the airport area and you have to circle until you spot the runway. And if you can't spot the runway, you can't land.
You're out.
Right? You're not allowed to descend below that.
Okay.
So a precision approach allows you to go further because you have both glide slope and azimuth. God, it's been a while since I've flown instruments, but it has both lateral direction as well as
Okay.
vertical direction to come in to zero in on a landing.
Makes sense. How come we can't do it in Inverness?
The trees are a problem.
Are they on our property?
No.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah, that's a problem. So,
So it's land is the problem at both of them?
hopefully, well, there's houses though is the problem. I got a briefing from, like I said, Andy. This is not my input that I put together. I simply collated all the notes from 3 different individuals that know what's going on, boots on the ground at those airports.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I believe, and Paige is here, she could possibly speak to it further, but I believe they are actually houses, that, you know, we can't buy these properties, but we have to work with the homeowners to trim the trees.
So just so we don't get too far afield here,
Yeah.
what is it we're supposed to decide today? I mean, does the decision about a precision, non-precision, does that have to be decided today in dealing with the runway extension? Or am I hearing that if you're going to do it, you need to tell us today you're going to do it so we can make plans accordingly, so.
Well, I think if you're gonna go to a precision approach, I think that's something that you're gonna have to look at a longer range vision on. And if you wanna do that at some point now or in the future, you need to give that direction so that it can be programmed. I mean, the other part of this that we need to always be cognizant of is the financial implications. I mean, if we're paying for it, it's much easier than if we, you know, are seeking federal and state funds. But if we want to seek federal and state funds, we also need to put it in our planning horizon so we can request them.
Yes.
I would say that it's exactly what Mr. Oliver said. The point being is that if we set that vision, that that's what we want, when properties become available or things change, we can make sure that we are on point to get where we need to go with the airports in the future, so.
Okay. Please continue.
I would note that typically on FAA eligible expenses, it's 90% federal government, 8% state government, 2% local, which is very modest. So we need to maximize our grant opportunities, and they have to be in a, and we sent it out to you, the airport plans that were submitted and approved by the FAA. So that is a planning document. Typically, it's a 5-year planning horizon. So you need to make sure that document is the way you want to go, because you're probably a good 5, 10, 15 years out on implementing that total plan. Okay, we're going to shift, if we may, to the Inverness Airport here. This shows 1930. What we had, let's go to the next picture, Doug. This shows 1960, and the pictures are not terrific. Okay, again, 1968. And let's go to the one, this is the Inverness Airport Business Park, which we're currently working on. That project, I can't remember, has that gone to bid yet, or is it, it's close to bid? Okay, it's gonna be bid in June. The design's complete, so it's gonna be bid in June. This shows Watson Street, which there's been some desire.
Randy, Mr. Oliver, can you back up one slide again?
Sure.
For the benefit of the public, explain what they're looking at. What's the gray, what's the orange, what's, you know?
Lindsay, you wanna explain?
Obvious, we see where the runway is to the right there, so.
Yes, yes, sir. The gray is the business park that we're looking to start construction hopefully before the end of the year. The orange is the runway extension, or I'm sorry, the taxiway extension from, basically from the south end of the FBO to the business park and into the business park. And then whatever that color is on the right side of this slide, that is Airport Road that needs to be improved as well to better enable trucks to get to the
And when you
business
say
park.
going out for bid, that is what component?
That is the core of the business park.
The gray or blue
Not
area?
the entire gray, just the core of it, because as you recall, we had a presentation a
That's right,
couple months ago. Because if we decide to do the air side, what we're calling the upper half or third of the business park, That's considered the air side. And we're still waiting on the FAA to tell us if we can get away with a categorical exclusion, or if we're going to have to do a full EA for that. So we're waiting to hear from them on that.
Okay, yes, Commissioner Carnahan.
Yeah, one thing I definitely want to point out is a good scenario. Watson, to me, is out. We definitely, I think, are going to have to upgrade Airport Road. But I think something that we really have to look at, if we're going to attract businesses to get them in and out of that business park, is we need to start talking to the state about putting a traffic light up there. And you know me, I'm not huge on traffic lights, but 41 is very busy. And matter of fact, for some reason, I always get out there and go by the airport a lot. And sometimes it's not easy to get out there. So if we're going to attract businesses that need to get in and out, especially with bigger trucks, we're definitely going to have to start talking to that's a federal highway, 41. So we're definitely going to have to start talking to someone possibly about a light there to
Well, my
facilitate
suggestion would
traffic.
be that we let the MPO take the lead on that. If the board wants a resolution to ask the
I don't-
MPO to look at it, we have 2 MPO representatives.
But again, I'm just throwing it out there because again, if you really want this to be a business park and, you attract businesses and big trucks coming in and out, they need to have a traffic light where it's safe and to get in and out there. So I think that is a key opponent, and again, I'm not huge on traffic lights, but, I think in this point, it's a must, for this to work right.
I would also add that it seems that we just looked at slides about how intersections at angles are not good and not safe, right? Are we not
That's
buying
it.
property so that we can have a squared intersection? So in the long run, if we're talking about planning, that would seem.
No,
the- the-
and again,
seem the
I
thing
think it
to
would be
do.
beneficial when they have events at the, fairgrounds too, so.
Are you saying right here?
Well, the one other thing, and Quincy would know the details on this, I understand many years ago, the county looked at Watson Road and looking at squaring up that intersection. And there was discussion as it relates to acquiring a piece of property. However, there was not a willingness at that time to proceed with condemnation on that.
Yes, sir. At the time, I think that was around 2007 when we were improving the west half of Watson Street with the intent of the business park and the airport. We tried to go forth and do the entire road, and I believe it was Mrs. Larkin, who has the piece on the south side of Watson, did not want to sell us the property willingly, and it was decided at that time that condemnation will not be pursued, but we did buy the piece on the northwest corner of Watson and 41 with the intent of improving that road, because that was the intended road for the business park. And just recently, Andy has contacted me about, he has tractor trailers coming down that section now, delivering aircraft, and we had to trim the trees on that piece of Watson Street, so the tractor trailers could get in there better. So, but it's just something we put in, just to be able to consider.
Just a second. Commissioner Slabaugh?
I don't know where Watson is.
It's
Watson's here.
I can't really see.
Right here.
the business park,
Right beside the gray blue
beside
area.
the
Okay.
business- the
Okay,
business park
thank
going
you.
straight
Okay.
east to 41.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know either.
Yeah, we're taking a lot of assumptions that everybody knows what everybody's
Where's
talking about,
Watson?
including anybody that might be watching on the internet or whatever. So
We
maybe
have
we
the
can be
map.
descriptive for people that are looking, and
Okay,
and you
I
might
found it.
describe these areas, okay? Okay.
Okay, let's go over, we currently have 3 grants that we're waiting to hear on. One is the DEO
Just a moment,
grant.
please. Just a moment, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you. I just had one question for Commissioner Carnahan. Why did you say Watson is out for you?
I just think, I'm not saying it's out, I mean, you can either upgrade Watson, but to me, I think it's just a better path of trucks coming in and out of Airport Road. I mean,
Because what strikes me is when the fair's going on, or races are going on, or anything else.
I
it's a
think they
much-
use that now, yes.
That's a much longer,
Yeah.
that's a much longer path off of 41, and the traffic going into that,
And-
the fairgrounds is gonna be pretty epic at times.
And, Mr. Chair, if you mind?
Go right ahead.
And remember, there's other land here that can be developed. Inverness owns the big spray field right there. So, when this business park ever takes off, I'm not sure they use that much. I can't I don't, they still use it quite a bit? hopefully we can get reclaimed water somewhere with them. And, but anyway, there's other land out there that could be developed, in this park
Well,
also.
I don't know if you want to make this decision today, but what we're going to need some direction on is going to be, is it airport you're looking to upgrade, or is it Watson you're looking to upgrade?
In my mind, I think that probably Watson should be, unless you're going to really upgrade it and buy and property in that. But Airport Road would be, I would put all the heavy traffic on and still use, and maybe keep the big trucks off of Watson. And, and that, maybe Watson and just the cars. That's just my take on it, but that's up to the board.
What's the consensus of the board?
Well, again, I'm not a traffic designer, but it seems to me that Airport Road serves more than just the business park. It serves the airport itself, and the other adjacent facilities, whereas Watson is closer to the business park, but probably more of a trip to get back to the airport itself.
And you're
so.
going through a neighborhood, okay?
Right.
You're going through where kids, I encourage y'all to go out there. My whole thing is, if we're gonna build the business park, we wanna be good neighbors, to them. So my suggestion would be, you're not talking about much more distance, but I would keep the heavy traffic on Airport Road, and remember, that was our Commissioner Kitchen. It was a long battle, but, Inverness finally, worked with us to get that road through there because,
That was the plan.
because when we moved that FBO, that road stopped at the animal shelter. So, Inverness will benefit from this also, the city of Inverness will. So I think it's a plus that we work with them and to make this successful for everybody.
Any other thoughts on airport versus Watson? Should we?
What's everyone think?
Obviously, we'll come back with a final action, but I want to, so we're looking at a light on airport and to enhance Airport Road to provide
That's my
additional
opinion.
access? Is that the direction, or?
Again, I'm not a traffic designer, but that seems to make logical sense as far as, plus it appears that must be recommendation, because that's what's presented in the presentation
And-
of why, improving airport roads.
Last but not least, remember, we got the animal shelter that won't be there. So, there's other businesses that can go along here that, and again, to me, it makes sense to use Airport Road and be good neighbors to the residents on Watson.
Does anybody object to Airport Road over Watson?
No.
So, I don't hear objection. Oh,
Well, I totally appreciate what Commissioner Carnahan just elaborated on. I would go with whatever staff's recommendation is, but I definitely appreciate what he said about families being there and so on and so forth. So I would be in the airport camp,
Sounds like you have a consensus in that
Okay.
direction.
but I would
We'll-
defer to staff because.
We'll embed that in the planning process. We have 3 grants that are currently pending. We don't know the status of any of these yet, but we have a DEO grant that Commissioner Slayball was instrumental in presenting to Dane Eagle on February the 28th. It's a $4.5 million grant. It will benefit, obviously, the Inverness Airport, and we're waiting to hear back on that. I don't know if there's any additional update on that or not.
Yes.
Yes, I called and had to leave a message, reached out again on Monday and asked that they would look favorably on us. But of course, I couldn't get a confirmation, but I, tried to put our face back in front of them. So fingers crossed.
Okay. The second one that we have is bipartisan infrastructure bill. This is the one the FBO from Inverness wanted to apply for, and we were the conduit for that application. It was submitted on March the 28th, 2022. There was some question as it relates to eligibility on that. We submitted it feeling that the worst that could happen was that we weren't successful. And this provides for a greener footprint as well as some things that are needed or wanted at the Inverness Airport. But it's a solar energy for the FBO. And hopefully it'll garner support at the federal level because this is a federal competition. We also submitted for a raised grant for $25 million was the total part of the project. And this, again, was to complete the business park infrastructure as well as enhance the roadways in that particular area. and it was submitted on April 13th. It was part of a $25 million package. It is a complex scoring analysis that's used for that, which is a combination of economic development as well as benefiting low mod income areas, and we tried to target both of those parameters within our submission. So we are waiting also to hear on that one.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Randy, that last grant, that is for the, that would fund the taxiway construction or the remaining 1/3 of the airport park, industrial park?
I think it includes, go ahead, Quincy.
Both of them?
Yes, sir. It should fund all of it.
Okay.
The remaining of it.
All right, well, let's hope we're successful. That would be nice.
Okay. We have the design of the T-hangar building
Commissioner.
number 2 in FY '22. We have the airspace obstruction clearing, FY '22 maintenance and remarking of, runways. 24 master plan update in 25, replace the fuel tanks out there in 25, and design T-hangars again in 25. I would note on those T-hangars, though, the state has been threatening to eliminate that 50-50 funding for a year or two right now, so I don't know how much longer they will continue to do that. Obviously, it changes the economics significantly if they don't provide half of the money.
Mr. Chair?
Sir.
I will ask the question again about these T-hangar buildings. Will these be built to a size that can accommodate the aircraft that can use that 5,000-foot runway at Inverness? Or are we building for the Cessnas?
I guess the question I've got is what size aircraft would you like to accommodate?
We put the 5,000-foot runway there to accommodate turbine aircraft. I don't know what size hangar it takes, but again, it seems logical to me to design or to build hangars to accommodate the size aircraft that we built the runway for. And if there is a threat to this grant program, would it not make sense at some point to have a conversation about maybe utilizing some of the economic development funds that we have set aside to get these hangar projects going before this grant program goes away? I mean, I know that's going to open up a whole nother discussion, but just a suggestion that if there's the risk of this going away at some point, and we know that we're going to need these hangars, would it not make sense at some point to try and utilize some funds that we have set aside for economic development?
Obviously, if we can do the funding match with the economic development funds, that would be ideal, because it's frankly challenging with all our capital needs to balance this within the capital portion of our capital budget.
Anything else? No. Commissioners, say, Mr. Chair, if you want to talk, because I can't see, if I'm looking this way, I can't see if your hand's up, so.
I always think
saw
that's
you.
so rude. I
That's-
always-
That's the way you're supposed to do it, so you're
Mr.
asking for
Chair.
a floor. Yes, Commissioner Slabo.
Randy, we talked about exactly what Commissioner Kennard is saying, and was that part of the DEO grant that I was pursuing?
That's included, the hangar that you wanted is in that DEO grant.
And-
That
and-
is a bigger hangar.
And that's exactly what Commissioner Kennard is saying is what I've been talking about. And that's, what size was that? 100,000 square feet?
I don't remember. Do you know the square footage or the size of that hangar,
I
Quincy?
believe that was about 100 by 120.
Oh.
But I don't think that building is intended just for hangar or aircraft storage. I think that's intended for expanding the FBO business.
Because that size aircraft, jet, one of the workshops or information, it all blurs together, but the rental statistics were at 90%, 92 across the whole state of Florida for even that size of aircraft. So we do know if we have that, we statistically, we will rent that. And it came up with me because there was a jet sitting on the runway, the taxiway, right there parked for weeks at a time, and, you know, an $11 million plane just sitting there with and that person would have rented it, the pilot told me, over and over and over. So it is something that evidently we're all thinking about, and I'm with you, I encourage that.
Okay, I got a wave down here first. and
Hey,
then I heard this.
Quincy, did I see yesterday we're finally fixing the hangar door in Inverness?
Yes, it's
Good,
it's close to
good.
being done, yes.
Yeah,
sir.
they're out there working on it, so, yeah, I just want to say good.
Something I
Okay.
just want to mention about the hangars is, just to throw this out, we get lots of calls for hangar storage, for hangar rentals. And I'd have to say 95 to 98% of those are for smaller aircraft, not for the big one. But either one we build, they'll be filled. So.
Well, if you
And
do,
the T hangars we've been building are nested T hangars, so you do have to push the plane back in. But in Inverness, we got a lot more room. We can make those hangars bigger. A T hangar building for 50-foot doors to have bigger aircraft in there, but not the ones that need 5,000 feet. So that would be
Anything else?
individual.
No, no, no.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a
Mr.
sec,
Chair,
just a sec.
I
Commissioner,
know we got, I think.
I know,
was that-
just a second, because
sorry.
Commissioner Davis, I just want to make sure you're done.
I see the young lady, I'm assuming she's a consultant.
Right.
I know maybe
Right.
she could come up and give us
Well,
some
I'll
info.
leave that up to the commissioners to decide. So do you
Okay.
want to ask her up now?
I am.
Okay.
I would
so
love to hear her, see her.
If we have,
She has some
and then
knowledge
you
there,
have
I
the
think.
floor next, so.
Well, I just have stuff that would clarify before we get into that.
Well, only one of us can run the meeting, so if Commissioner Carnahan would like the representative to come up and answer a question, so are you
Yeah, I'd
willing
like
to
to
do
hear
it?
her input. I see her
Okay.
wanting to give us
And then
some
Commissioner
input.
Davis has the floor next, and if this
Thank you.
clears it up, then Commissioner Davis won't need to clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Paige with Wright Rudder Aviation. Just to address this hangar situation, because I've been taking some notes. The typical standard FBO model is to have a large corporate hangar that's managed by the FBO. And then the jet or whatever large aircraft can actually like request, hey, can I be overnighted in the hangar, et cetera, et cetera. My question to you is, are you concerned with overnights or are you concerned with long-term tenants?
Did that answer your question?
Well, I think that's a great point, because, you know, a lot of your airports you go in, you can put them in overnight or leave them out, but, so with that, I'll give the floor to the other commissioners.
Okay, commissioners?
Well, and this ties into what Paige just said. So there's, I believe, 3 different categories of hangars. There is piston, small airplane, you know, possibly turboprop type airplanes that go into T hangars. Those can also go into large, secured, fully walled hangars in a stacked formation. They can also, those large hangars can also secure large jets like Falcons, Citations, et cetera, Cessna Citations, et cetera. So that has to be managed by the FBO to avoid hangar rash. So they go out and they pull, if there's a jet in front of another jet, they have to pull this jet out, and then they pull the other one in, put that one back, and they stack the hangar. The third category.
Excuse me. I guess you don't need to stand there to listen to us talk.
Okay,
So
yeah,
you
no
can
problem.
have a seat, and if we have more questions,
She's
we'll bring you back up.
elaborating exactly what I was
Okay,
gonna say.
great,
Okay,
thank you.
just wave if I get anything wrong, because you're more on the front lines than I have been in many years. The third category of hangar is something like when one of our based aircraft build their own, like the Lambs, like some of the other folks who have leased land from us and built their own corporate hangar, because quite frankly, they want to have their own space and they can build their own hangar. So those are the 3 different categories that we're looking at.
Okay, Commissioner Carnahan, any questions?
I'm good.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Davis was asking for the floor earlier. Did you?
That's it.
That's okay. Commissioner Kennard.
The question was asked if I was concerned about the overnights or the long-term, you know, I guess, based aircraft. And I'd say both. I think those need to be taken into consideration. Commissioner Davis said, you know, repeated something that I think I've said several times now, is that, you know, the smaller or the piston aircraft, they can stay in a larger hangar. They can be housed in a larger hangar. the larger aircraft, that we do have those in our community, can't go into the smaller hangar. So it seems to me that whatever we build, as Quincy said, whatever we build, it's gonna get rented. And it's, again, it seems to me to make sense that if we're extending the runway to attract people to hangar their planes here, to visit this area, to bring their business, move businesses here, or consider moving businesses here, we gotta have a place for those people to hangar their jets.
Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I agree with everything everybody's saying, and what I look at from my perspective, not from an aviation perspective, is when I look at airports, and I've spent a lot of time in airports, my father a pilot, my daughter's a pilot, and is when you have all these smaller hangars, which you're gonna have in these smaller airports, it tends to look hodgepodged. And if we did the larger hangars and had the vision for the future, we can make it a little more manicured and raise the bar. Because sometimes these smaller airports tend to look a little run down, and we want to, we have an opportunity to entice people to come. And so let's just try to think about the future. My suggestion would be to think about the future and think about larger hangars and making it more manicured and have a real plan. And that's where I stand, and hopefully you all will agree with me.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'll just throw a fastball out here is, also, if you're going to attract an avionics shop, aircraft maintenance shop, in those types of businesses, you're gonna need larger hangars, okay? Anytime you take a plane to get avionics or something like that, they're large hangars, or maintenance on your plane, they're larger hangars. So if you want to attract those businesses, you're gonna have to have larger hangars versus smaller hangars.
So, Mr. Oliver and staff, I'm hearing larger hangars.
Okay, and just to clarify policy position, then the rent for those hangars will be set at a level sufficient to cover the county's 50% contribution?
I would think so. I mean,
Okay.
that's what we do with the other hangars, do we not? So,
Yes, sir.
okay. Any other comments on the hangar issue before we move on? I think we left off at number 7.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
I do have one other.
Yes.
I would say market rate, or to cover 50%, whatever is higher. But on the 50% aspect, Mr. Chan from Right Rudder, Andy, said that, and I don't know, I didn't double check this, but he said that the 50% is actually a reduction from what it was before. I think it was.
A couple of years ago, it was a little bit higher, I believe.
Yeah, and his point is that we should definitely, anytime we have a match like this, we need to grab it. And then, so that's new information that I didn't know, that they're looking at possibly getting rid of that 50%. So I'm
They've
fully
talked
on-
about it for a year or two.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Number 7, I believe, is where we left off. Yes.
Okay, design, and we'll make that larger hangars then. Rehab the airfield security fences and gates, and the aircraft run-up pad, and these are the planned future things. The next slide shows the, an overview of the airport, if you will, and it shows the business park. I would note one of the adjacent property owners has approached us about potentially being a partner on this, and they are contiguous to the airport, and that would be positive, but there's been no affirmative action on that yet.
And I believe that's 400 acres.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant parcel. So that is essentially an overview of the Inverness Airport and what the status of various things
The
were.
rest of this is just in the CIP breakdowns, correct?
Right. This is in the CIP. It's currently funded out of the general fund. Obviously, if you want to augment that with economic development funds, we can do more things.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
like the idea of economic development funds because this is economic development.
Yeah, and it's gonna be one-time funds too, so I mean, if it's gonna be dealing with capital and development or whatever, it seems like, you know, my position, the sooner we spend that money, the better, and get it out of there and get it over. I mean, it was an emergency, right? 2 years ago, it was an emergency. We have to get that money out and get it spent, and it's still sitting there, so.
I would recommend you hold on to a little bit of it for businesses that you may want to attract when they become known.
What's the, I'm just curious, I'm not familiar with the layout, the little, if you look at the last slide for the, I guess it was packet page 25, it shows a little finger of land down to the bottom of the page, in the far right corner. What was that?
I can't
Is that just
answer that.
came
I'll
with part of
defer
the
to
land? I
Quincy.
mean, was that bought for a purchase, or did that come with some other clearing? You see what I'm talking about? Can we back up to that last slide?
On the bottom right, Quincy.
Right there, bottom right corner, see that really extends all the way
The
down
L?
to.
Yes, we bought about 160 acres just before I started at the district, or at the county. 160 acres from the Holdens, and it was, they wanted to sell it all, and that was part of
And
their
that was
property.
part of, so it was that shape, that's the
Yes.
reason we bought it. Okay, I was just curious, I didn't know if that was bought for a specific purpose down there or something.
Mr. Chair, while
Yes.
he's up there, I have a
Yes.
question.
Sure.
The part that's, this isn't the north end, but on the top end of this slide, is that the spray fields that used to be part of the dump?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if that was part of the dump. Most of the dump was more to the south that I recall.
What Andy said is that basically the airport was carved out of, we remediated the environmental aspect
Yes,
of
that's-
the dump because there's no liner on the old dump, right? So that whole section is leaching into the aquifer, but he said that that used to be part of the dump and now it's used for spray fields. He may be misinformed, but that's what he told me.
Yep.
No?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
All right, the old dump, okay, if you're looking at the FBO,
Uh-huh,
to the right, you see where the animal shelter is?
yep,
That's the old dump. Not
Okay.
where the spray fields are across the street.
okay.
Well,
That's the old landfill.
it actually extended west on.
Oh, did it really? Okay.
Because when we bought about 70 acres from the city back around '08, and that's what really kicked off all the development
Got it.
to the south, we excavated about 2,000 yards of debris.
Got it, okay.
When we built the new runway and taxiway, so it extended
Okay.
to the
Got it.
west quite a bit.
But that's the side it's on though, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Instead of keeping you getting up and down and up and down, why don't you stay there and I'll just say, is there any other questions of the board? Okay, thank you very much. I know you get your exercise this morning, up and down. Okay, board, any other, well, other than, I don't guess you're planning on going through the whole CIP and the backup information. So does that conclude your presentation?
It does, I would recap what I think the decisions are. You want to go with bigger hangars that'll handle multiple aircraft and, you know, look at what we can get programmed in the FAA, FDOT planning horizon for hangars for the next 5 years.
Also, I believe there was a consensus to talk to the MPO about improving the, I won't say traffic light, improving the intersection at Airport Road, and since that is the one that's designated for improvement, right? We also
Yes,
talked
sir.
about that.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
was, nobody was against, doing Airport Road and not walking, so. That was the only things I had heard. Yes, ma'am, did you have something to add to that? Well, hang on, just one sec. So, anything else from the board for Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Yes.
And to try to move faster so that we don't lose out on the 50% match and spending some of that economic development money faster.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, one other thing.
No problem.
The last portion of what Andy brought to light for section 2 on the document I provided, if we could, that's very, very inexpensive fix to get some more signage at Inverness Airport. I'm one of the ones that 2 years ago, when I went to visit Wright Rudder, I went past Airport Road all the way to Watson, cut up Watson, and then realized that the doggone Airport Road was actually connected. Thank you, GPS. So,
Improved signage under section 2 is what you were talking about.
yes, sir.
Are you talking,
Just
like the typical highway signage, or are you
Yep.
talking monument signage?
little typical highway signage, just
Yeah, we
to,
can do that.
I figured that was an inexpensive fix.
Okay, anything else from the board for Mr. Oliver? Trying to bring this, no pun intended, I'm trying to bring this in for a landing here, so, okay, so here we go. So now we're gonna go back to open to the public. Anyone here wish to speak, please come on up.
All right, Paige again from Right Rudder Aviation. Sorry to kind of backtrack, but I was thinking about the airport road situation. I agree with the light being necessary. I think that's a great addition. There have been some accidents even with our staff on that intersection. My main concern is I started thinking about during events, the racetrack, the fairgrounds, when there's events going on. The amount of parking that's on that road actually blocks semis from going down Airport Road. So in my opinion, I think we need to have access for semis both on Watson and Airport Road, just because there's so many events that go on that speedway and the fairgrounds. So that's something I think we need to address, unfortunately.
It's okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there anything, any other public comment? Yes, sir, please come up. I assume when we talked about improving Airport Road, it was going to be some degree of widening and modernizing or whatever, right? I mean, plus, and people that park along the right-of-way, they're not supposed to do that anyway,
Well, we
right?
can post signs that say no parking on the right of way to get rid of that. I mean, you're not, the traffic congestion during an event, you're not gonna be able to deal with, but
Right.
we can deal with people parking on the right of way and impeding traffic.
Okay. Yes, please, the next speaker, please come up. And the clerk's going to ask you to fill out a green card before, during, or after, okay?
Do that. Yeah,
Okay.
James Chen from the Cristero Group. I completely agree with Commissioner Kennard and Commissioner Cunningham's about the corporate hangar. We refer that as you refer that as a larger size hangar. I'm not sure about I'll say Inverness Airport need a larger hangar. Crystal River Airport definitely need corporate hangar. We have a couple of the local jet was sharing the hangar. They have a difficulty maneuvering to share that limited space. That's why Mr. Nam had constructed his own, and we have other waiting list to use that. Also, to Mr. Canahan's point, we try to attract different business related to the aviation, like interior renovations, the upholstery, the avionics shops, the engine overhaul, those capacity. I own an avionics shop in Ocala, and I know exactly that's something we try to also attract to the local airport. Without a space, there's no one will be able to come in here. And legally, we cannot do that if there's no facility. FAA was looking for the repair station, they will need to have a facility with adequate size, adequate setup, and it's a very strict requirement. So I would really appreciate that you bring that up. That's actually the reason I was coming here to try to promote that. We need corporate hangar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Excuse me, could you fill out a card for the clerk, please? Yes, sir, Mr. Flanagan, and you can do that when you're done talking if you want.
Yes,
Just
sir.
don't
All
forget to-
right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to be here this morning. Part and parcel on the aviation board that you have appointed me.
Can you give us your name
Oh,
for the
I
record?
apologize. Carl Flanagan, Crystal River. Been in Citrus County since 1989, visiting since 1983. On the board of the Citrus County Chamber of Commerce. Also on the aviation board as well. Thank you very much for that opportunity. I drive on 19 a lot, living in Crystal River. The need, in my opinion, for a large hangar is definite. I cannot tell you how many large aircraft of all types I see that land on that runway in the past, let alone what's going to happen in the future. It is my opinion that the larger hangars are definitely needed in order to garner the economic development opportunities that are down the road. And I think that we need to be planning for the future instead of building some of the smaller hangars, which, don't get me wrong, those are the ones that I fly, the small Cessnas. not the larger ones like our chair does. But needless to say, we need to be prepared for the future. Doing a survey is probably only going to get you the smaller aircraft, not the larger ones that we know and we see on a daily basis. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Commissioners, one final go-around here. Anything that you want to make sure Mr. Oliver has before we leave today? Commissioner Davis.
I have one comment that just occurred to me and one question for our illustrious airline pilot. Number one, the large hangars, it is unbelievable how many small airplanes you can stack into a large hangar when a hurricane's inbound. The Tetris that is, it's just amazing. It's not something that you do on a day-to-day basis, but the hurricane protection is actually a pretty big benefit to the larger hangars as well. And then I would ask Mr. Kallenbach, I think that what he brought up, number one, I would be surprised if there's any place in the world that leads aviation more than the state of Florida. So that is a huge benefit to our state. It's a huge benefit to our county for economic development. And he actually is the one who still had to point out to me, who should know better, that his idea that this is a really great career path for Citrus County youth. And I would ask if the airlines are now requiring any sort of college degree to come into that, because obviously Embry-Riddle offers an aviation degree. We do have a highly capable CF. It wouldn't be an aviation degree per se, but I was just curious about that for our long-range planning.
Could you answer that question, please?
Thank you. To my knowledge, Federal Express, FedEx, is the only carrier, major carrier, to still require a four-year degree. Everybody else, Delta was the last to fall, has removed this as a hard requirement. That said, they still vastly prefer it. So to the extent that you have two equally qualified candidates, one has a degree, virtually in anything. My degree was in music, but aviation in particular, that candidate will in fact get the nod over the one that does not.
Thank you very much.
So obviously, whatever we can do to promote this sort of education here.
Thank you.
is,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Wait a minute, just a second. Commissioner Davis, have you finished?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Slabaugh.
I wanted to address something with Captain Kallenbach. I was at Georgia Tech's graduation this weekend and the pinning ceremony for the Air Force. So obviously, I talked to a lot of these seniors graduating and asked which ones were going into the pilot training program or the test pilot with the Space Force, and asked them if that was something they were would be interested in going into. That was my father's route, going into flying for United. So there was one that said he had no thoughts of going into commercial flight, but now seeing the opportunity, he has changed his course with the Air Force, and the other one said yes. And then, so I was very excited that hopefully this group of people will, is happening all over the states. So I appreciate your interest in the youth and encouraging them to do that. And the second thing is, I just wanted to say how thankful I am personally to have Commissioner Davis's education, intelligence, compiling this. I read this morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it really was fascinating, and I appreciate you. I could never do the communication that you do in this and getting three people's thoughts and making it so clear and easy for a layman like me, and I'm thankful, and I hope that we realize what we have in you. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kennard, any final comments?
Yeah, do I need, I'm hearing that the board wants the MPO to evaluate safety improvements at Airport Road and 41. Is that something we need formal board action on, or is that something that Randy, that you will take care of a letter addressing that, or how do we
Well,
want to proceed
I
there?
can do it either way you want. I think it always has more impact if it's a board direction.
Okay.
Why don't
Yeah,
you
so
bring it
we'll
up
put it
at
on the
today's
next-
meeting or put it
Okay.
on the next
And we'll
agenda?
put it on the next meeting.
All right, sounds good.
Madam Attorney, you had a comment on that?
I was just gonna say, you can't take action at this meeting.
I know that. So,
Well,
if it's
but
emergency-
But I read your poker face, so I knew what you were thinking, so I wanted.
Thank you,
we
sir.
can declare it
I
an
stopped.
emergency.
Okay, so Commissioner Kennard, you can put that on the next agenda, and we'll, I'm sure you'll get unanimous support to move forward with
Sounds
that.
good.
Okay, anything else?
No?
Commissioner Carnahan, last
I
word.
am good.
Okay, so with that said, we have concluded our workshop. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Oliver and staff, our next regular meeting will be at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and our next workshop, we have two of them planned on the 24th, one beginning at 8:30 and one beginning at 9 o'clock, which the public may very well be interested in, dealing with the northern connector of the Turnpike. So just to let everyone know that.
The
So-
Turnpike Authority will be here.
And they will be here for that. So with that said, the workshop is adjourned. See you all at 1 o'clock.